Hello and welcome. On today's video, I'd like to talk about basic transportation. As automotive enthusiasts, we often get so wrapped up in conversations about million-dollar hypercars that we tend to ignore the fact that a vast majority of people will never see one of those cars, let alone own one. No, what people around the world need isn't cars with interiors made from the skin of extinct animals or engines with more horsepower than a cruise ship. They need honest, cheap transportation. Thankfully, the vehicle we'll be driving today is a textbook example of just that, the Roewe i5.
The i5 is perhaps the most basic of vehicle layouts, the compact sedan. While the compact sedan class is known for being the poster child for accessible, efficient transportation, it isn't really known for its avant-garde styling, and the i5 is no exception. I think the most accurate way I can describe the i5 exterior is to say that it is inoffensive. Would I be upset to walk out and see it in my driveway every day? No, but it also doesn't exactly excite the senses. Speaking of design, the Roewe badge has bothered me from the second I first laid eyes on it. It violates every tenet of good design by being both overly complicated and completely forgettable. A logo is supposed to express something about the company, but all I get from the Roewe badge is that whoever designed it is probably the type of person who thinks that the inside of a Trump casino in Atlantic City is the height of luxury. They need to fix it, quick. The interior of the i5 is much better than the exterior, but not due to the design, which is just as boring as you would expect. What I find remarkable is that despite the fact that this car looks quite compact from the outside, interior space is actually quite copious, including the backseat and the trunk. The seats are also very comfortable.
One thing that bothered me about the i5's interior was the UI on this touchscreen. The screen itself is actually pretty big considering the class that it's in, but the UI is ugly. Straight up ugly. Having an ugly UI and a big screen is like saying, hey everybody, I've written a terrible novel, but I've put it inside of a really, really big book. Maybe your novel is bigger than other people's, but it's still a very bad novel.
One last thing. Before you think that all i5s come standard with this mafia tint, you should know that this is a private owner car. This tint is wild though. The driver must only go places during the day, because I had to drive around with the windows down the other night in order to have any idea what was happening outside the car. Higher trim models of the i5 come with a 1.5-liter turbocharged four-cylinder, putting 169 horsepower through a 7-speed DCT. But remember, today's video is all about basic transportation. Turbos and DCTs are too fancy for us. We're driving the naturally aspirated version of this 1.5-liter engine, which puts 120 horsepower through a CVT transmission.
The result is that this may be one of the slowest cars I've ever driven, and my daily back in the States was a 98 Mazda pickup truck. I never thought I would say this, but my truck feels faster than this. 120 horsepower is a decent amount of power for a car this small, so I think the real culprit is the CVT transmission. The revs just build so slowly. Nothing happens until maybe 3,000 RPM, and then something happens, I guess. The Roewe doesn't actually release an official 0 to 60 number, but if this thing 0 to 60 is faster than 13 seconds, I will be so surprised.
It's also not exactly a blast in the handling department either, with numb steering and a suspension that doesn't respond well to spirited driving. But what it lacks in power and handling poise, it makes up for in comfort. The i5 is a genuinely comfortable car for something this small and cheap. And if you're buying basic transportation, I reckon comfort is a bit more important than lap times.
The only other quirk I find worth mentioning is the perplexing shift pattern here on the gear stick. You have your classic P, R, and N, and then you have DE. D is of course drive, but that E had me scratching my head until I saw the words eco light up in the dash when I pushed the shifter sideways into that mode. But the thing is, there's also a plus and minus symbol. So what they've done is put the eco mode along with the manual mode, which doesn't make any sense to me. Eco mode is usually for saving fuel, and manual shifting is more of a sporty thing. So I'd love for somebody at Roewe to explain to me how that happened. One of my goals as a car reviewer is to drive every option there is in the affordable compact sedan class. Ethan, you might be saying, that sounds like the single most boring quest I've ever heard another human being decide to embark on. Well, you may be right, dear viewer, but I've always had a soft spot for basic transportation. Besides, you're much more likely to have somebody ask you for buying advice about a cheap sedan than you are a $1 million hypercar. All right, that's all for today. Thank you for watching.